Hello, everybody. I'm back to do another reading from the Kraken's Curse. This will be chapter 14, just one chapter tonight. It's a busy evening here, so I'm just going to read the one chapter for you, but back with two tomorrow. But one tonight from the Kraken's Curse. This is chapter 14. Chapter 14, Confession. Arthur ran up the hill as fast as his legs would carry him. He ran until his chest hurt and he couldn't run any further. His destination was not far from here, yet it felt like miles away. The marina would soon be visible over the brow of the hill. On and on he ran. He passed Old Tom's shop and the park, and then he headed towards the slope. He could just see it in the distance, and down he started to run. The downward stretch was a little easier on his aching legs, but he did not stop. He dare not stop. Everything he had trusted and everything he had believed in rested on this. The faith he had put in his father's friends meant nothing anymore. How ironic it was that one of the final clues should come from a distant relation. Arthur now almost certainly believed that McCrae had played a key part in his father's mysterious disappearance, and, more than likely, in the death of James Tindersley. The gravel and stones that cracked beneath his feet marked his stopping point. In front of him he could see the small thatched cottage built from the red brick that was the home of McCrae, and to the left he could just see the edge of the marina where the boats were moored. As he looked on, he felt a surge of anger run through him as he thought about what the captain had done. Arthur slowed and walked at a steady pace towards the front door. He tried to calm and prepare himself, but it didn't work very well. He rapped clearly 3 times on the door and then waited. There was no reply. He knocked again, louder than before. The front door opened a crack, and Captain Jonathan McCrae looked out. He was not happy to see Arthur, that was evident, but Arthur did not care. "Do you not have anything better to do than interrupt and annoy me night and day?" Captain McCrae sneered, while not meeting Arthur's eyes. "I would advise you to open the door right now." Arthur's voice was clear and loud. He was in control this time, and he would make sure the captain knew this. "I would thank you not to tell me what to do in my own doorstep. I'm only telling you this because if you do not open the door, then this instant I will have to force my way in by breaking it down." Arthur's voice had the same eerie calmness, and yet he was intent on getting his own way. "I don't like the way you're talking, Arthur," the captain whispered, his voice fading, "but I'd rather settle this inside than become a mockery at the front door." Against his better judgment, Captain Jonathan McCrae opened the door and allowed Arthur to enter. He knew this was probably the wrong decision, and he was right. The minute Arthur entered the cottage, everything changed. Captain Jonathan McCrae turned on his heels and paced down the corridor, but he didn't get far before Arthur's hand reached out and placed itself on his right shoulder. The captain did a complete turn on the spot and looked directly at Arthur, and as he stared, you could see the fear and dread in his eyes. "I'm sorry," Jonathan whispered, knowing it was too late. Arthur didn't listen. He didn't care. In the second that followed the captain's words, there was silence. Arthur's hand clenched into a fist, and he struck the side of the captain's face, knocking him off balance. He tried to retaliate, but Arthur was too quick, and he pushed him up against the wall. "Sick!" Arthur roared, completely out of character. "Sick! Sick! Sick!" As Arthur shouted these words, his eyes moved backwards and forwards across the captain's face. "How could you do it? What spurred you on?" I don't know what you mean," the elderly captain stuttered, finally managing to edge in a word. "Oh, yes, you do," Arthur shouted, his anger pulsing. "How could you cut short the life of Alexander Jennings? How could you murder him in cold blood?" Arthur's voice didn't waver. It was always kept the same tone, which showed how angry he was, yet it hid something else as well. Still holding the captain against the wall, Arthur beckoned him up to a standing position, and the captain immediately obeyed as there was nothing else he could do. Arthur placed both hands on his shoulders and locked him flat against the wall. His eyes moved wildly all over the hallway and then back to the captain's face once again. The hall was dark. The windows no longer let in any light, and the sounds of the birds could no longer be heard. "I did not do it. It was not me. I was not myself. I was controlled," Captain McCrae spluttered, trying to find breath. It was his only hope. It was the last few words that could possibly save him. He had been in enough trouble these past few years that he knew how it worked. It was just that he seemed to be very good at saving himself. Arthur smiled a cheeky grin that was a little strange for him. He knew something that the captain did not. His plan was working and he was happy. "Do you really think I did not know all of this?" Arthur smiled suddenly, making himself look extremely out of place in this dark hallway. The sea captain pushed against the wall and found that it was easier to break free. Arthur's grip had loosened. Moving slowly backwards towards the nearby doorway, never turning his back, Captain McCrae led Arthur into the sitting room. He took up a chair, sat by the fireside, and beckoned for Arthur to join him. "Do you not think I'm eternally sorry for my sins?" the captain began, without looking directly in Arthur's direction. "Do you not think about those events that go through my mind every day, and that I think about that poor man all the time?" The captain's voice was shrill, and you could note the individual tones of fear within it. "I am damned, Arthur, damned for all eternity, never to forget. That is the price that I have to pay for my actions. That day, the day that I met you on the seashore of Poole Harbour, I acted irrationally, and you can see why. I wanted to save you from all this trouble, all the fear and the dread that I have caused. Believe me, Arthur, I will never forgive myself for what happened, and someday I will get my revenge on that ravenous sea beast." Arthur was shocked. He had no idea that the captain felt this way. Yes, he had already worked out that it was a sea creature that was controlling the captain, the same sea creature that had overturned the fishing boat, but he did not understand it. From the day he had first met the captain, everything had been new to him. It was as if on that day his life had been changed and he had been thrown in at the deep end of a world he did not understand. It was a world that his father knew well, a secret world that he had not bothered to tell even his own son about. Now, sitting in a chair in the living room of this friendly sea merchant, Arthur felt sorry for him. For all the things he had been through and for all the things he had to face, every day for the rest of his life. "It seems to me that you are a brave man," Arthur spoke after a long pause. This time he spoke without any anger in his voice. "Everything that you have been through has affected you greatly, and I hope that you can forgive me for my actions today. But I have, like you, been thrown in at the deep end, so to speak, of a world that I do not understand." "Arthur, I do not hold your actions today against you," Captain McCrae responded. "You were angry and you had every right to be. In some ways I blame myself for the disappearance of your father." "You mean the sea creature which turned over your precious ship, engaged your mind and controlled you for such a long time, causing you to murder this poor innocent man, had something to do with my father's disappearance?" "Yes, I feel your father was the main source of the Kraken's anger and that I was only there to do his bidding." The captain was deadly serious and he knew exactly what Arthur was going to ask next. "How much do you know about the Kraken?" "Not a lot," Captain McCrae replied. "The little I do know, I have learnt as I went along, or from the book that was on board my ship when it sank. Horace has a far greater knowledge on this subject than I do." "The knowledge will be important," Arthur began, "but the manpower will be imperative." "What do you mean?" "Oh, I think you know exactly what I mean," Arthur smiled. "I suggest we get a little rebellion together and attack this creature where it will hurt the most. This will in turn give you the revenge that you crave so greatly, and me a chance to rescue my father." "Do you really think we can do it?" the old captain queried excitedly. "Of course," Arthur replied, and at that moment his whole face lit up in the beam of a smile. So that's chapter 14 of The Kraken's Curse, and I will be back to read chapter 15 tomorrow night, and also chapter 16 as well, and we'll find out more about the story then, and we will discover exactly what happened.